Okay, so just a couple of the usual suggestions. Firstly, if you are tired, you don't have to keep looking at the screen. I'm actually going to give a couple of demonstrations where it might be helpful to look at the screen. But for most of the time, it's fine if you want to look away, because I'm very aware that we get zoomed out and looking at the screen can be very tiring. And the second thing is just work in a way that's comfortable for you, so that everything I say is just a suggestion. So I'm going to be particularly focusing on the breath. And if something feels strained, or you feel that you're having to push yourself, please don't do that. Please just make sure that you are comfortable. So I want to talk about the concept of prana. So prana is an interesting word because in yoga, prana means energy, and it also means the breath. And in yogic philosophy, it's considered that our main way of getting our energy is our life force energy is how we breathe. It's one of the major ways that we can help to be healthy and energetic. And in terms of science, science really agrees. And because we're doing a series on overcoming fear, I just kind of want to start by demonstrating what can happen if we've been chronically stressed. And this also can happen if we've had long COVID. I was talking to a friend of mine today who's had COVID, and she's been very traumatized by it. And what happens if we have trauma, we have chronic stresses, we tend to hyperventilate. So I'm just going to demonstrate this now, what this means, but I am going to be kind of exaggerating a little to make my point. So for this, it is helpful if you look at the screen. So if we are in a chronic stress situation, we tend to breathe from the chest. You'll see the shoulders moving up and down, and we might be breathing through the mouth, and we're breathing quite fast. So this is how it might look. As I say, I'm exaggerating, but it's almost like we are panting. And very often this is unconscious and we're not aware of that this is happening. But the problem is when we're breathing like this, we're breathing off carbon dioxide too fast. And then that actually affects how much oxygen is taken to our cell, to our mitochondria, or in yogic terms, we'd call that the flow of prana. So we want to breathe more slowly, and we are aiming to breathe through the nose from the diaphragm. And actually, I've got a very rough diagram here. So if you look at this diagram here, if you can see that, if we're not breathing effectively, we might have this kind of ragged up and down, in, out pattern. And I often think the diagram kind of explains it all. So we're aiming more for this kind of more smooth wave-like. It's a very subtle pattern, in, out, in, out. And we're thinking of breathing through the nose from the diaphragm, if possible. And we want the breath to be slow and subtle. So we're not thinking about the breath as being too deep. So also, just before I finish talking, because I know listening to talking is tiring, in terms of energy, the inhalation in yoga is referred to as prana, the incoming breath, the inhale. But there's another kind of energy, which is what we're going to be focusing on for our session, which is called apana. And that's the energy of letting go and releasing. So it's sometimes also called the detoxification energy, and that's always associated with the exhalation. So as an example, you can see this rather nice room I've got behind me where I'm renting. I might think that I could make this room look nicer by putting more and more furniture in it, and it would actually make it look better. But actually what I'd have to do first is to empty out the old furniture before I put new furniture in. And it's the same with our energy. We need to empty out on the exhalation. We need to let go with this eliminating energy of apana before we can then encourage energy into the body. So with that said, if you like to come to a comfortable sitting position, and as always, if you're extremely tired and you need to lie down, that's fine, although we're going to lie down quite soon. And just take a moment or two to think about your posture. So if you can, just be evenly sat over your buttocks and make some space between the crown of the head and the tailbone. And think about the ribs lifting. So this kind of area below the chest, which is where the diaphragm is. So you want this to be free. So we're not straining anything in our posture. We're thinking of the posture as being open. And then if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes. Again, that's just a suggestion. You don't have to if you're not comfortable with your eyes closed. And also, I'm going to suggest in a minute that you start to observe the breath. I'm aware for some people, particularly if you have had trauma, that doesn't feel comfortable, in which case I'm going to suggest that you just notice the movements in your body, or if anything feels overwhelming, bring your awareness to something which makes you feel safe. So that might be an image, or it could be the softness of the palms of the hands. So just take a moment or two to come into your body, just observing how you are in this moment. And then begin to observe your breath. So we're not judging the breath. We're not saying, oh no, I should be breathing like this, or, you know, I'm not breathing correctly. We're just observing with kindness and compassion. And then if we can, we're going to be breathing through the nose. And again, I know if you've had long COVID, that might not be possible. So this is just something to aim for, not something to judge. And then we're going to start to lengthen the breath, so the breath becomes slower. But as it becomes slower, don't think about making it deeper. So it's a nice relaxed feeling. And again, if we can, we're going to breathe from the diaphragm rather than the upper chest. So we're encouraging our system to come out of a hyper-aroused stress response. So if you want to take your hands, because sometimes it's helpful to do that, you can take one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. And then the hand that's on the belly is going to rise very gently as you breathe in and relax as you exhale. And the hand on the chest, on the heart, is quite still. So just observe that, providing it's comfortable for you. And then we're going to take our hands around the side of the lower ribs. So if you want to look at the screen and it's helpful, you'll see that my fingers are facing forward and my thumb is around the back. And as we inhale, we're going to inhale into the hands. So they just come apart very slightly on the in-breath. And as we exhale, they relax back towards each other. So you just see on the in-breath, my fingers coming apart a little bit more, not too much, nothing is forced. Exhale, they come slightly back towards each other. So providing that's comfortable for you and it's not strained, just try that in your own breathing rhythm. And then release your hands back to your knees, still with your eyes closed. Just observe how you're feeling now, emotionally, physically, mentally. And now bring your awareness to the exhalation. So forget the inhalation, let the inhalation be free. And see if you can focus on a long, smooth, comfortable out breath. And then breathing normally. Again, just observe how you're feeling now.